Let us see the neurovasculature and conduction system of the heart. The blood vessel of the heart comprise the coronary artery and the cardiac vein, which carry blood to and from the most of the myocardium. Look, heart need blood, oxygenated blood, and the heart also should remove deoxygenated blood from its soul. So the myocardium, they consume oxygenated blood and they produce waste material. That waste material transported through the cardiac veins. And the myocardium should get oxygenated blood through the coronary arteries. So the blood vessel of the heart is cardiac vein and coronary arteries. And the blood vessel of the heart, as well as the heart itself, also controlled by the nervous system, which is called sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation. So the blood vessels and the heart should controlled by sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation. The artery supply of the heart need oxygen. So those nutrients and oxygen transported by coronary arteries. So coronary arteries, there is two types of coronary artery, the right and the left coronary artery, and supply the myocardium, the epicardium of the heart. The endocardium does not need blood vessels because it can get blood through diffusion. The right and the left coronary arteries arise from the aortic ascending aorta, the first branches of aorta, just superior to the aortic valve. So during blood pump towards to the ascending aorta, there is a first branch which is called right and left coronary artery. This right and left coronary arteries, they transport and goes to the myocardium and pericardium of the heart. Look, this is this picture show. Okay, this is ascending aorta. At the root of ascending aorta, there is one artery. This is right coronary artery, and this one is left coronary artery branch, which is called circumflex coronary artery. Anyhow, there is two branches, the right coronary artery and the left coronary artery. So the right coronary artery give blood for, look this picture, this is the left coronary artery and this is the right coronary artery. So the right coronary artery give blood for the right artery, most of right ventricle, SA node and AV nodes. The left coronary artery give blood for left ventricle and much parts of the left artery. So we should know which parts of the coronary artery, give which parts of the heart. Look, the right coronary artery supplies mainly 100% the right atrium and most of the right ventricle. But some parts of the left ventricle, little part, mainly the diaphragmatic surface of the left ventricle is supplied by right coronary artery. And the right coronary artery also give blood for 1/3 of interventricular septum. The right coronary artery also gives 60% of SA node. So the 40% of SA node is supplied by left coronary artery. Around 80% of AV node is supplied by right coronary artery. So the 20% of the AV node is supplied by 20% of the people of AV node is supplied by left coronary artery. So those structures are mainly supplied by right coronary arteries. So the right coronary artery supplied those structure. The left coronary artery supplies mainly the left atrium 100% and most of the left ventricle. A little part of the left ventricle is supplied by right coronary artery, and some the apical or the diaphragmatic surface of the right ventricle is supplied by left coronary artery, but most parts of the right ventricle is supplied by right coronary artery. Look, the inferior vein interventricular septum, 2/3 of interventricular septum is supplied by left coronary artery, but 1/3 is supplied by right coronary artery. As I told you that 60% of a synod is supplied by right coronary artery, but the 40% of people, synods are supplied by left coronary artery. So we should know which artery supply which parts of the heart.
Arterial supply of the heart. The heart is mostly supplied by the two coronary arteries which arise from the ascending aorta immediately above the aortic valve. The coronary arteries and their branches run on the surface of the heart, lying within the subpericardial fibrofatty tissue. Anatomically, coronary arteries are not end arteries, but functionally they behave like end arteries. Right coronary artery. Origin. The right coronary artery arises from the anterior aortic sinus of the ascending aorta immediately above the aortic valve. Course. After arising from the ascending aorta, the right coronary artery first runs forwards between the pulmonary trunk and the right auricle, and then it descends almost vertically into the right atrioventricular groove, the right anterior coronary sulcus, up to the junction of the right and inferior borders of the heart. At the inferior border of the heart, it turns posteriorly and runs in the posterior atrioventricular groove up to the posterior interventricular groove, and terminates by anastomosing with the left coronary artery. Branches and distribution. Right conus artery. It supplies the anterior surface of the pulmonary conus. Anterior ventricular branches. They are 2 or 3 and supply the anterior surface of the right ventricle. The marginal branch is the largest and runs along the lower margin of the sternocostal surface to reach the apex. Atrial branches. They supply the atria. One of the atrial branches, the artery of the sinoatrial node, supplies the SA node in 60% of cases. In 40% of individuals, it arises from the left coronary artery. Posterior ventricular branches. They are usually 2 and supply the diaphragmatic surface of the right and left ventricles. Posterior interventricular artery. It runs in the posterior interventricular groove up to the apex. It supplies the posterior part of the interventricular septum, AV node in 60% cases, and right and left ventricles. Left coronary artery. Origin. The left coronary artery arises from the left posterior aortic sinus of the ascending aorta immediately above the aortic valve. Course. After arising from the ascending aorta, the left coronary artery runs forwards and to the left between the pulmonary trunk and the left auricle. It then divides into an anterior interventricular artery, also known as left anterior descending artery, and runs downwards in the anterior interventricular groove to the apex of the heart. It then passes posteriorly around the apex of the heart to enter the posterior interventricular groove to terminate by anastomosing with the posterior interventricular artery, a branch of the right coronary artery. The circumflex artery winds around the left margin of the heart and continues in the left posterior coronary sulcus up to the posterior interventricular groove, where it terminates by anastomosing with the right coronary artery. Branches and distribution. Anterior interventricular artery, also known as left anterior descending artery. It supplies anterior part of interventricular septum, greater part of the left ventricle and part of the right ventricle, and a part of left bundle branch. Circumflex artery. It gives a left marginal artery that supplies the left margin of the left ventricle up to the apex of the heart. Diagonal artery. It may arise directly from the trunk of the left coronary artery. Conus artery. It supplies the pulmonary conus. Atrial branches. They supply the left atrium.
Venous drainage of the heart. The heart is drained mainly. The venous drainage means the heart wall, mainly myocardium. They consume oxygenated blood and nutrient, and they produce carbon dioxide as well as waste material. Those waste material and carbon dioxide should transport towards to the heart by the cardiac vein. So there is a great vein, the great heart vein, that transport the deoxygenated blood from the heart wall to the right atrium, which is called coronary sinus. So the coronary sinus is a great vein that transports deoxygenated blood from the heart wall to the right atrium. So this is called venous drainage. So this sequence, the coronary sinus is the main vein of the heart, which receive blood from different veins, mainly the greater cardiac vein. There is left and right greater cardiac vein, and from the middle cardiac vein and from small cardiac vein. So small cardiac vein, middle cardiac vein, greater cardiac vein, they drain blood to the coronary sinus. Finally, the coronary sinus drain blood towards to the right atrium. There is a coronary sinus opening. So look at this picture. This is a dilated coronary sinus. This dilated, or in this picture, this is a dilated coronary sinus, and receive blood from greater veins, greater cardiac vein. Look, this is a greater cardiac vein. So this greater cardiac vein drain blood towards to the coronary sinus, but the greater cardiac vein receive from middle cardiac veins. This is the middle cardiac vein, and posterior cardiac veins, small cardiac veins. Those are tributary for coronary sinus. So finally, this coronary sinus transport blood or drain blood towards to the right atrium. The greater cardiac vein, it is the main tributary for coronary sinus. Its first part is anterior interventricular vein, begin near the apex and ascend with anterior interventricular vein. So the greater cardiac vein receive blood from left cardiac veins. So the middle cardiac vein accompany posterior interventricular vein and drain towards to the greater cardiac vein. Look, small cardiac vein, most commonly they directly penetrate and enter into right atrium. But most of the middle cardiac veins, it is a tributary for greater cardiac veins. The smallest cardiac vein, look, this is special vein. The smallest cardiac vein does not drain into the coronary sinus. This is special vein. Smallest cardiac vein do not drain directly into the coronary sinus. This smallest cardiac vein, it is directly drained towards to where? The right atrium. በቀጥታ ነው በኮሮነሪ ሳይንስ ጋር ሳይሆን ድሬን የሚያደርጉት smallest ነው። I'm not small. The smallest cardiac vein, they directly drain blood to the right atrium. They does not drain into the greater cardiac vein, or they does not drain towards to the coronary sinus. The smallest cardiac veins, special veins, they directly drain towards to the right atrium. But some smallest cardiac vein also, they directly drain towards to the right ventricle. Right atrium ይተውትና ወደ right ventricle ሄደው drain የሚያደርጉ አሉ።
Drainage of the heart. Venous blood from the heart is drained into right atrium by the following: coronary sinus, anterior cardiac veins, vena cordis minimi, also known as Thebacean veins. Coronary sinus. It is the principal vein of the heart. Most of the venous blood from the walls of the heart is drained into the right atrium through coronary sinus. The coronary sinus is the largest vein of the heart and lies in the posterior part of the atrioventricular groove. It develops from the left horn of the sinus venous and a part of the left common cardinal vein. Tributaries. The coronary sinus receives the following tributaries: great cardiac vein. It accompanies anterior interventricular and circumflex arteries to join the left end of the coronary sinus. Middle cardiac vein. It accompanies the posterior interventricular artery to join the coronary sinus near its termination. Small cardiac vein. It accompanies the right ventricular artery in the right posterior coronary sulcus and the right end of the coronary sinus. Posterior vein of the left ventricle. It runs on the diaphragmatic surface of the left ventricle and joins the sinus to the middle cardiac vein. Oblique vein of left atrium, also known as vein of Marshall. It is a small vein which runs downwards on the posterior surface of the left atrium to enter the left end of the coronary sinus. It develops from the left common cardinal vein, which is also known as the duct of Cuvier. Right marginal vein. It accompanies the marginal branch of the right coronary artery and joins the small cardiac vein or drains directly into the right atrium. Left marginal vein. It accompanies the marginal branch of the left coronary artery and drains into the coronary sinus. Anterior cardiac veins. These are a series of small veins which run parallel to each other across the surface of right ventricle to open into the right atrium. Vena cordis minimi, also known as Thebacean veins. These are extremely small veins in the walls of all four chambers of the heart